What is up, PreMed Star? It's Dr. Dale, the author of How to Raise a Doctor and the author of PreMed Mondays. Both books are available on Amazon.com, so grab a copy there. And of course, you are listening to the PreMed Mondays Mentoring Podcast. I am extremely excited about this week because we are talking about something which I think was definitely one of the most important factors in me performing well as an undergraduate student, and that is sitting in the front row of class. Check it out. Happy Monday, PreMed Star. It is going to be another awesome week, another great week. Down here in Dallas, Texas, it's been really rainy for the past 3 weeks, throughout most of the month of October, and we're bright-eyed down here today, sunny and excited to get this week going, all right? So it's going to be a great week. I want you to have that same mindset that I've got. Monday morning, I'm happy. I'm ready to get on and take the week. I wake up saying, yes, I get another week to go out there and do this again, not, oh man, it's Monday. It's, yes, another week. Let's go do this, all right? So first of all, let's take care of some little business. I want to make sure you guys are aware. So on PreMedStar.com, you guys might be checking out the site and seeing a lot of funny stuff going on right now. So we're excited. We completely revamped the website. So you'll notice that when you go in there, it looks a lot better. It's a lot easier to use. And, really just a much better website now. We got tons of stuff going on, but I want you guys to be patient with us because anytime we deploy something this big, think about it, we just redeployed the entire website. Anytime you do something that big, there are going to be some bugs and some kinks. So my team, we've been up, day and night, working around the clock, trying to fix these little kinks. One of my poor lead engineer last night, he was up for essentially over 24 hours, took a small little nap or something, got back up and is still working right now, so working really hard to get all these little kinks out of the system to make sure we give you guys the best products possible so you guys can accomplish your goals. So be patient with us. That's all we ask. Some things don't look right. If you see one of those things, we've added a submit feedback button on the left side at the very bottom. It says submit feedback. Just send a message there. It's going to go straight to the PreMed Star admin accounts and somebody will review it. We'll get it to the engineering team. We'll get these things taken care of. All right. But I'm really excited. It's going to be much better than it was before. And we're going to add a lot more stuff to it that's going to help you guys be able to reach your goals. So very, very, very excited about that. All right. Now, remember to subscribe. Remember to share. I want to say that before we get into it because some people don't listen to the very end of the podcast. I'm going to say it at the start. Please subscribe to the podcast. The more people that subscribe, the more people that share, the more we get this out. And it's beneficial to our ratings. And of course, it's beneficial to get to more people so more people can hear this mentorship for PreMed Mondays. Now, let me grab my book. We're talking about, again, one of the things which I think was definitely, if I had a secret, one thing to tell you guys about how to be successful as a pre-medical student. I'm very faith driven, so it would be faith stuff first, actually. So let me say, if I had another thing to tell you guys about how to be successful as a pre-medical student, it would be to sit in the front row of your classes. That's my thing. Dr. Dale, how can I be successful? Here it is. Sit in the front row of your classes. This is more than just a seat. It's more than a physicality. So it's not just the fact that you're sitting there physically. That's part of it. But it's a complete mental mindset change. It's a complete shift in your thought process into being a leader and being a go-getter. That front row seat is powerful and you want to be there, all right? So this week, we're talking about the 5 reasons to sit in the front row of the class. And there are much more than 5 reasons. I hear myself getting excited. Let me slow down. Take a deep breath, Dale. Slow down because I get really excited and I talk fast and I get very excited about the front row because I think it can make all the difference for you, okay? Listen to what I'm saying. Take advantage of this. Front row, front row, front row. All right, the 5 reasons. Number 1, you have fewer distractions. That's just obvious. You have fewer distractions. I think about any time I go somewhere and I sit in the back, even at church services, I don't sit in the front of church services. I sit further back, and that's for different reasons. But when I'm sitting back there, sometimes I find myself, my eyes wandering, and I'm looking down and actually sit in the balcony level. So I'm looking down onto the first floor, and I'm looking at what people are doing down there instead of paying attention to the message. Same thing goes with classes. I can't say for class because I always sat in the front row of class for the most part. But, you think about college classes, a few times I did sit in the back, you're distracted, right? So if you go to a college like I did where you have hundreds of people in your class and there's in the lecture hall, you have literally like 200 people, 300 people sitting in front of you and you're not in the front, it's so easy to get distracted by those hundreds of people. What's that guy doing over there? Is he on Facebook? What's that girl doing over there? Is she who's she texting? So easy to get distracted by people, right? And when you sit in the front row, all of a sudden, all that is literally behind you. So the only way you're getting distracted by them is if they're making noise or if you're volitionally, purposefully turning around to look at them and be distracted. Because otherwise, you're sitting in the front row and you're staring straight ahead. Much fewer distractions. Much fewer distractions, all right? So ultimately, off the bat, sitting in the front row, boom, you're knocking off all those distractions. You're staying focused. And we know that focus is one of the biggest keys to success. You have to learn to stay focused. And the easiest way to stay focused is to get rid of your distractions. So number one, sitting in the front row helps you get rid of those unwanted distractions, all right? Number two, you gain confidence to interact with your professor. And this is so big, gain this confidence because typically you're going to have a question. And if you don't have a question, it's probably because you're not paying attention. But after a lecture, you're going to have a question to ask your teacher. What do most people do? Most people just leave class and never ask that question. Now I'm going to ask you, is that the right thing to do? I don't know. Maybe for you it is. But I didn't do that. A lot of people who I know who make great grades didn't do that. People who I know who run stuff, who run companies, have $1 million companies, they don't do that, right? These people ask questions. The greatest doctors I know, they don't do that. They ask the questions that they have. So you need to be in a position in your class to ask questions and do so confidently, okay? And sitting in the front row helps you do that. Let's take it back to this thing about distractions again. When you're sitting in the further back, middle of class, or in the back of the class, and you have a question to ask, it becomes immediately intimidating because once you raise your hand for that question and the teacher looks back at you and says, all right, Dale, everybody turns around and looks at you. Not everybody, but a lot of people, eyes turn around, heads turn like scary movies. The heads are turning around and all the eyes focus and lock on you. And that bead of sweat starts to bubble up on your head and that bead of sweat runs down your head. Your voice gets a little bit shaky because you're wondering, are these people going to think this is a dumb question? What are they going to think about me? Tell me you haven't been in that situation. If you haven't been in that situation, maybe it's because you haven't asked a question, right? I've been in that situation, all right? So the way you avoid that situation of being nervous to ask a question is by sitting in the front row of class. You raise your hand up. You can't see anybody looking at you. They're all behind you. There's no scary eyes turning and locking in on you. You can't see any of that. Yeah, they might be looking at you, but they're all behind you. And you don't know they're looking at you. All you're doing is you're one-on-one now. You're one-on-one with the teacher. You look at the teacher looks at you. You ask that question. You're not freaking out about, man, do people think this is a dumb question? I'm trying to tell you, trust me on this. I did this. I tried it out. I tell it to pre-meds, not just pre-meds, tell it to people all the time, no matter what field they're in. This is the way to get over that big fear of asking questions. You sit in the front and then you get to ask the questions that you want to ask that are important to you. So you don't have to go home and spend the extra 20 minutes trying to find the answer that the teacher could tell you in 20 seconds. All right. Critical. Number 3, you stay more alert. If you're in the front row, it's a lot more difficult to fall asleep in class. The teacher, if I'm thinking back to my college days, not every teacher does this, but some teachers, will walk back and forth as you're teaching in front of the class. They're close to you. They're going to be more engaged with you because you're in the front row just by default of your physical location to them. I even had teachers sometimes that my friend and I was in the front row. We watched the spit on your lips. Sometimes people are talking. You can see a little spit on your lips. We watched that spit. And, some teachers would actually, I was close enough where they would come and talk and they'll actually spit and fly up at me. And those things, as nasty as they sound, they kept me alert, right? They're little things that you could pay attention to, and they're not like major distractions, but you're little things that, for whatever reason, they're kind of fun things that kind of keep you alert. And you're trying to dodge the spit, spit droplets as you're flying at you, right? So you being in the front row just keeps you awake, all right? The spit stuff is kind of a joke, but the idea is you're in the front row, you're more engaged, you're closer to the teacher. You don't really want to fall asleep directly in front of the teacher. So there's an extra push motivation inside of you saying, gotta stay awake. I can't look foolish sitting here sleeping in the front row, right? So it helps keep you alert, staying awake, and you're more engaged with the teacher, all right? And of course, if you're more engaged, you're more focused. People who are more focused tend to be more successful. Number 4, your professor will remember you. I get a lot of people who come to me and they have issues with rec letters, and they talk about, I didn't make good relationships early in my pre-medical year. So when I was a freshman, sophomore, I didn't make these relationships. Sitting in the front row is one of the easiest ways to start that relationship. And that's because your professor will take note of you. Your professor knows who sits in the front row. When I go teach places, right? I do med school teaching, and I do stuff for every now and then. I have organizations. We'll go do stuff for high school kids and stuff like that, right? When we go teach, I remember the people who tend to sit in the front row. So people you remember, people who ask questions, number one. Number two, people who sit in the front. Oftentimes, those two things tend to come hand in hand. People who sit in the front row are typically people who ask questions. Not all the time, but often, okay? So sitting in the front row helps you get remembered by your professor. And when you get remembered by a professor, that is a very good thing, because that allows you to form those relationships to get you the excellent, not the good, but the excellent rec letters, and the excellent rec letters are what you want, right? So it helps you form that relationship, because your professor will remember you simply because you're in the front row. And you start building that relationship. It's much easier for you to get up and ask a question after class, or get up and say, "Thank you, professor," if you're in the front row, then as opposed to if you're sitting in the back, you have to walk all the way down to the front, get through the hundreds of students in your class and go do that, right? If you're in the front row, you're right there. Say, "Thanks, professor. I'll see you next class." You walk out. They'll remember you for that. Trust me, they will remember you for doing that, okay? And number 5, it boosts your confidence. Now, this one, as I say in the book on PreMed Mondays, and if you have the hard copies, page 71, it's difficult to describe. But there is something special about sitting in the front row of the class. It gives you ownership. It kind of makes you feel like you're the leader of the class. It's kind of like, think back to when you were a kid or whatever. After a soccer game or basketball game, you have to line up and say, "Good game, good game, good game." Everybody always wants to be in the front of that line because it makes you feel like you're the leader, right? You get in the front of the line because it makes you, "Yeah, I'm leading." The same thing in class. When you sit in the front of the class, for whatever reason, you feel as though you are the leader. I'm out front. I'm setting the pace for this class. I'll say that also works for asking the question. If you try to be the first one to ask a good question in class, it makes you feel like the leader. And it's not just making you feel like a leader. You are a leader, right? You become a leader and you set the tone for the class. When you sit in the front row, you can do that. It gives you this confidence. It's difficult to describe. I don't know exactly why. This is just my hypothesis, but for some reason, when you sit in that front row, you get a sense of ownership over the class. Like, "Hey, I'm here now. This is my class. It's time for us to start learning. It's time for us to get things going." You get a sense of ownership. You're more involved. You're more engaged. It just gives you a sense of confidence that otherwise is very, very difficult to obtain. So those are my 5 top reasons to sit in the front row of the class. And there are a lot more than that, but time is limited. So those are my top 5 reasons. Number 1, you have fewer distractions. Number 2, you'll gain confidence to interact with your professor. Number 3, you'll stay more alert. Number 4, your professor will remember you. Number 5, it boosts your confidence. All right. Remember those things. So this week's assignment, make it a point to arrive extra early for class so you can get a front row seat. That's it. If you're already doing that, then kudos to you. You've already achieved this week's assignment, right? But if not, the assignment is get to class early and get a front row seat. All right. So, next week, we're going to be talking about discipline. And again, that's one of my favorite things. And it's one of the most difficult things, too, because most people, for example, if you've been listening to this podcast, actually, if you've been listening to PreMed Mondays and you've gone through 20 weeks, I'm betting that you're actually listening to the tips and you're actually doing these things. But, for some people who just listen here and there, they're not going to be disciplined enough to do it. So preparation is part of the story, right? Think back to the grind. You guys know my grind mnemonic by now. Goals, reason, information, networking, all that stuff is cool, but then what's the D? The D is discipline. So you have to finish all that up with the discipline, okay? So we're going to be talking about that next week. And let me leave you with a quote. So this quote is on the next page in the book, and I love it, by John Wooden. John Wooden was the famous, great basketball coach at UCLA, right? And he said this: "Things work out best for those who make the best of how things work out." Things work out best for those who make the best of how things work out. I'm going to say it one more time, okay? And that's another, just so you guys know, that's another leadership principle in terms of the way leaders speak. They tend to repeat things multiple times. That's, if you go back and watch Martin Luther King speeches, John F. Kennedy speeches, and Winston Churchill, like these great individuals, Jesus Christ in the Bible, verily, verily, so many things. Great leaders tend to repeat things multiple times. I forgot what it's actually called as a phrase for it, but so I'm going to say this one more time. Things work out best for those who make the best of how things work out. And that's John Wooden. So think about that. Meditate on that statement, okay? It's very important. Just think about it. And you guys have any questions, you know where to find me, PreMedStar.com. Send me a message on the site. Again, thanks for being patient with the site as we're building you guys the very best products that we can. It's going to be awesome. It's already awesome, but it's going to be even more awesome with the new design. Send your feedback in. We'd love to know what you guys think. And if you're seeing any issues, we're here to make it better for you so you guys can be successful. All right. Love you guys, and I will see you online.